Hello guys, welcome to my podcast Thinking in Sound. Today is episode number 33. And since my last podcast wasn't such a success as I expected because nobody wants to hear about music theory, so today I chose to talk about another topic completely unrelated with music theory, and I'm going to talk about performance anxiety. I'm sure that all of you had experienced anxiety while performing to some extent. Maybe some of you were scared a lot, maybe some just a little bit, but I think this feeling is really familiar to all performing musicians. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experience and share my thoughts on this topic. So I started to learn to play music professionally at the age of 5, and I graduated from the most famous musical school in Lithuania. It's called Čiurlionis Art National School of Arts, and I was studying choir conducting, but piano was required since the first grade throughout the school, and we were required to play exams twice per year, in winter term and in spring. And of course, we also had required a scale exam where we played, just technical stuff, scales, arpeggios, chords, and that kind of stuff. And quite early in my age, I realized that I'm having really big performance anxiety. On the day of my exam, I couldn't eat anything before that. After playing, I would always get migraines since very early age, and well, it wasn't fun. My hands were shaking and things like this happened. Actually, in some point, I think I was maybe 12 or 13. At that time, I was even, suggested to leave the school because of the performance anxiety. My teacher just said, either, do something with yourself, or, you might want to choose another career. But anyway, I did not give up, and the most disappointing thing was that my teacher never really told me or made me any suggestions how to overcome that performance anxiety. And I struggled with it for quite some time, and I think I finally dealt with it just maybe 15 years ago. I finally managed, to manage myself and stop really feeling it. So, is performance anxiety always bad thing? I don't think so, because some of that adrenaline might help you to perform better, to make your performance more exciting. But when it just rules over you and you cannot control it, then it's really bad. So I think the first step towards healing is to really diagnose what causes that horrible performance anxiety when you cannot control your body, your mind, and what is happening. Well, the first thing what I realized over the years was that I always felt anxious and had that big stage fright when I had to play from memory. So all the piano repertoire had to be played from memory, obviously. And I was never really prepared well. It means that I never started to memorize music in advance, to give myself plenty of time to internalize it and to be really well acquainted with the music that I'm playing. So I think this always rose up that horrible stage fright. And I was having nightmares about, having memory slips way after, graduation. And really after, for many years now, I play music from the score, as most of organists do. That way I can learn more new repertoire faster and feel more confidence while playing. But when I had to memorize, it really made me feel really uncomfortable. I still have those horrible nightmares when I, wake up in my dream and I have myself sitting on the grand piano, in the performance hall in our musical school, and I have to play pieces, but I don't know, how to start, how to finish, and what I'm playing at all. So I'm sure that many of musicians have had experienced something similar to this. Well, the other thing that I realized only when I was a student at the Academy of Music, and I was grateful for my piano teacher, Justas Dvarionas, who was the first who noticed that actually I'm not breathing while playing, while performing. And well, it did not mean that I don't breathe at all, because obviously I would be dead if I wouldn't breathe at all. But he noticed that I'm not breathing enough, and lack of oxygen gives the signal to the body that something is really wrong, and your hands start shaking, and basically you cannot control your body. So what I started doing after that, at least before, sitting down on the organ bench or on the piano chair, I always take a few deep breaths. Not too deep that you would not faint, but deep enough, to give my brain plenty of oxygen. And then during, phrasing, when performing music, I always, start reminding myself, to breathe regularly, to breathe deeply, and this helps to stay concentrated and to control your body, your movements, and your anxiety. So, okay, now I'll just have a quick sip of water while Vidas will play some of my music in the background. And I'm drinking water from our beautiful Secrets of Organ Playing mug, designed by our friend from Australia, Lisa Flores. By the way, drinking water also helps, to stay in a good shape and, to overcome performance anxiety. Well, another thing is that, you need to probably find for yourself what gives you most the trouble, why that performance anxiety, arises, because without knowing the reasons, you cannot fight it. So for me, as I told, was the things with unpreparedness, things with memory slips, and that helped me quite a lot. Another thing is that when we are really young, we have a very little acquaintance with the stage and the things that might happen during an actual performance, and it's scary, and this gives anxiety as well. So my advice would be also, take as many opportunities to perform publicly as is possible, because if you will not do it often enough, you will never overcome it. The more you'll be on stage, the more different things will happen for you, during your performance, the more experience you get, the easier it will become. So, because, if you are playing publicly like twice a year, or 4 times a year, that's not enough really. You need to perform, well, at least once a month, but preferably maybe once a week. So for church organist, I think it's a really good opportunity, because we have to play at least one service per week, or even more, especially if you are working in a large Catholic church, when you play probably church service regularly every day, and even more than one per Sunday. So this gives you also a really good stage for learning how to deal with performance anxiety. Also, as I said, the briefing really helps, because it's an important part of our performance. When you brief, you don't forget briefing, your music flows more naturally, and you will play more musically, and your brain will be thankful, and you won't have shaky hands. What else? I think the thing is that sometimes it's not that you just, are scared of all the audience, but you might be scared of some particular people in the audience. I don't know, maybe your former organ professor, or I don't know, mean neighbor, or whatever, But we all have people that we don't want, or we don't feel comfortable while they are listening to us. What to do in such a case? Then I suggest for you that if you have a good imagination, imagine while you are preparing for that performance that these all unwanted persons are sitting in the room and listening to your playing. Sometimes this helps, really, if you have a good imagination, and then in reality it will be much easier when you encounter them in a real life. Another thing, if you have good friends or relatives, maybe ask them, to come and to listen to your performance before your actual performance. Do so-called dress rehearsal for them. This might also help, because like in Lithuania, we did not have like studio for everybody, where we could gather and to play what we have learned over a week for each other, and to say nice things, and maybe to criticize, and to observe one's progress. But in United States, in Lincoln, we had such an opportunity that Monday afternoon we all had like our studio class, where all the organ students and professors, both organ professors, would come, and we all would play, for each other, and that helped really to overcome the stage fright, and to get more performance experience, and prepare for our recitals. And that was really, really, really good. And the general rule for our professors was such that if you cannot publicly perform, if a month before your actual recital you cannot sit down in an organ studio and play your entire repertoire for the students, for your fellow students. Well, you might still make some mistakes, but you need to be fluent in playing everything from the first note to the last bar. So if you can do that, it means that you still have 1 month to improve, your music. Well, so what else? I think physical activity also might help. Practice yoga, or do meditation or Pilates, or just go for a walk, but include those physical activities in your daily routine. This helps us really to think about our breathing, also to clear our mind, and then it calms us, and if we are in a good physical shape and our mind is clear, then it's much easier to overcome performance anxiety. Well, anyway, I hope this was helpful, and please share your stories about things that you have overcome, and is it really scared for you to perform anymore or not? Because for me, actually, it's now, I sort of joined the other side where I don't feel performance anxiety almost never, and this is scary too, because I think some of adrenaline is still helpful and might be used for a good cause. So how to find this good balance? Maybe you could give some good advice for me or for each other. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And for today, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next episode next week. Thank you. Bye bye.